Reentry Week webinar on the role of public defense in reentry. So we are very happy to have with us today four people really, who are active in public defense offices around the country who are going to share some of the work that they do and talk a little bit about how they got to where they are now and what some of the challenges and opportunities that they see in for public defense in helping with the challenges that people face when returning from jail and prison. So I'm just going to briefly introduce our panelists, and then we'll get started. So our first panelist will be Jamie Argento-Rodriguez. She is the Chief of the Community Defender Division at the Public Defender Service for the District of Columbia. She has committed her career to representing people in D.C. whose lives have been derailed by the criminal and juvenile justice systems. Jamie began her career at PDS representing both juvenile and adult clients in special education cases. And in addition, Jamie spent more than 6 years as the coordinator of the Public Defender Services Juvenile Services Program, which is a program within the Community Defender Division, advocating for the unique needs of children who are incarcerated and committed. So Jamie graduated from George Mason University and the University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill. Our second presenter will be Dr. Alexandra Chauhan. I hope I pronounced that correctly. She is an assistant public defender in Richland County, which is in Columbia, South Carolina. So in 2015, Dr. Chauhan obtained 2 grants to open juvenile reentry program at the Richland Public Defender's Office. The juvenile reentry team that she supervises consists of a social worker, youth advocates, and a civil attorney, and I'm sure she will talk more about that, so I won't go too far into that. She has a PhD from the Department of Political Science at the University of South Carolina in Columbia. And after receiving her PhD, she received her JD at USC School of Law. So joining her will be Mike Matheson, who is a reentry attorney in her office. And our last presenter will be Dean Beer. Dean is the Chief Public Defender for the Montgomery County, Pennsylvania Public Defender's Office, where he oversees 56 employees. Dean is dedicated to providing comprehensive representation beyond standard case processing and helping clients become productive citizens. Before joining the Montgomery County office in 2013, Mr. Beer was an assistant public defender in Philadelphia and Charlotte, North Carolina. Dean graduated from Temple University School of Law in 1982. So without further ado, I will turn this over to Jamie.
Good afternoon, everyone. It's a pleasure to be with you. I'd first like to thank Tracy and the folks at AU's School of Justice Policy and the Right to Counsel folks and all of you who are participating this afternoon on this very important week, our first National Reentry Week. Here in DC, we're very excited because we sit with the national folks as well as our local folks to celebrate reentry. And so I'm very excited about being able to talk with my very esteemed co-panelists and with all of you that are attending today. So I'd like to get started and talk to you a little bit about the public defender's model and how we came to serve folks in the reentry points of their criminal and juvenile cases. So the first slide that you're going to see here on the screen is a snapshot of our website, which is for my division, the Community Defender Division, which is, I'm very happy to report, a new website that we have just launched this year where folks can, from all aspects, from both the professional world, our colleagues, judges, social workers, et cetera, as well as our clients can reach into our world and explore what services we provide. Up until recently, our website, while it was individualized for PDS, had not been as user-friendly as it currently is. And so I encourage you, not today when we're listening to my co-panelists, but at another time, to look through our website and look at the very different things that PDS accomplishes. So I'm going to leave that up there as sort of backdrop, but I wanted to talk to you a little bit about Public Defender Service and how we came to do reentry work. So PDS exists in its current form since 1970 under the name of the Public Defender Service, but we predate even the Gideon case back into the 1960s when we were formed as the legal aid agency for the District of Columbia. And since the 60s, our organization has been dedicated to providing client-centered representation for folks, for indigent folks who can't afford representation in criminal court. And not so long after that, and 1964, we actually piloted what we called the Offender Rehabilitation Project, which is now our Office of Rehabilitation and Development. It was the first of its kind project where we had social workers actually on staff here at the Public Defender Service to help work with our lawyers to provide services to our clients and to assist them through their criminal case and when they're returning home to their communities. So really, I mean, we're talking more than 50 years of work that has been dedicated to helping folks who are struggling through the criminal justice system and then looking to return home to their communities. And since that time, there have been many different things that PDS has done to look at our client-centered model so that we can provide services to our clients that best meet their needs. Genevieve, if you want to switch to the next slide. A couple of the hallmarks of the things that we do now that have roots and programs that have existed for far longer than my tenure here at PDS are the programs that now exist here in the Community Defender Division. So I want to talk briefly about our two programs and the work that we do, and then at the end, after my panelists, my co-panelists have talked, if you have questions more specifically about PDS's model, I'd be happy to answer them. So our first program is the Prisoner and Reentry Legal Services. I'm very enthusiastic about our PRLS program, as it's a newly constituted and restructured program that incorporates both institutional representation for our incarcerated clients on the adult side, as well as reentry services for those folks who are looking towards heading home and who have come home, returned to the district, and are looking to move on with their lives. So you'll see a snapshot there of our flyer that outlines the many things that we do in our Prisoner and Reentry Legal Services program. And we do this with a small but robustly energetic team who literally work with our clients who are shipped throughout the country. Because unlike in most state systems, we do not have a prison here in the District of Columbia, and so our clients are shipped throughout the country. And so reentry is really complicated for us because our clients could be as far away as California or Massachusetts or anywhere else, and we need to help them as they transition back. Everything from when they're trying to obtain release on parole or supervised release to when they actually come home and have been gone for many years and aren't familiar with what the District of Columbia now looks like and how the social systems actually operate on a practical level. So some of the hallmarks of what we do here in the Prisoner and Reentry Legal Services program is that we provide a lot of resource and information on criminal record sealing. Folks are able to walk into our office as well as our main office to talk to us about their past arrests and criminal records, and we advise them and can represent them on their criminal record sealing. Genevieve has just put up a slide that is actually a very informative, brief video that our office created last year regarding the criminal record sealing and expungement process. We don't call it expungement in the District of Columbia, but because our clients throughout the country refer to record sealing as expungement, we highlight it that way so that our clients know what they're looking for. The video is very informative. It goes through the eligibility requirements and the processes, and then directs folks, as you can see here from the slide, to come to meet with the attorneys who are on duty at our main office located near the courthouse, as well as our community defender office where my staff is located. So it's another good resource, and I encourage folks, if they have any IT whizzes or folks that are interested in media, to put something together for your local jurisdictions, because this is a great tool to get the word out to your constituents. So in addition to criminal record sealing and the stuff we do on the adult side, we also have a juvenile services program. Our juvenile services program is actually one of our longer standing programs that folks don't always know about. Since 1982, JSP has existed inside, operating offices inside the detention facilities for the District of Columbia. And this is quite unique, as we have day-to-day contact with our clients, the children who are inside the facilities, both at the detention facility and the long-term committed facility, who have legal needs and they don't know how to address them. They don't know how to reach their attorneys, their social workers, their probation officers, and they're very anxious about what's going on in the court system. And so we're able to help them literally from inside the juvenile justice system. So we do, you can see here from the information on the slide that we have an institutional role and that we help to advocate for the youth on their conditions of confinement, but we also help with the youth to advocate for the return to the community. In DC, juvenile life is till the age of 21, and so kids who are committed, even for the longest periods, are returning home to their communities, and reentry is an extraordinarily important part of juvenile representation here in DC generally, and for our attorneys here at PDS. We partner with the attorneys of record in their juvenile matters, as well as social workers, educational attorneys, mental health providers, et cetera, to ensure that services are put in place for both the child and their families so that when they return home, they can be successful. And when they're not, we represent them in their aftercare proceedings, which we call community status review hearings here in the district. And so right now we are operated, as you can see, by our staff, by 2 attorneys, and we're going to be growing to 1 more. But it's an extremely small program, but does a lot of work. We serve, right now we serve about 150 kids who could be incarcerated at any time in the district with just 2 attorneys and some intern staff. So as you can see, I don't want to talk too much longer because my panelists have a lot to say, but there's a lot of work that we do that's focused on reentry, and we have dedicated an entire division to institutional work and reentry because we see the need. And it's not that it's just popular now. You'll hear from my colleagues and others that the work that PDS has established dates back, 5 decades ago, and we hope that this will continue to gain momentum and that the country will follow suit, and that we can help our public defender colleagues throughout the nation develop programs to address these needs. So thank you.
Thanks, Jamie. Alexandra, do you want to talk about your program in South Carolina?
Yes, thank you. Thank you so much. Alexandra Chauhan. I'm an assistant public defender in the Richland County Public Defender's Office. I work specifically with juveniles, and I am one of the 2 juvenile defense attorneys in the office. Thank you so much for the opportunity to speak, to be on the panel, to learn from others. And again, just like Jamie said, it's in a very important week. The recognition of the idea of reentry is very important for us, for our youth, and for everybody we represent. So again, I appreciate the opportunity. I will start by saying that I am a mentee of National Juvenile Public Defender Center. I have attended many trainings by NJDC, and that's really where my inspiration about reentry and juvenile representation has started. I was way back when I was in law school. I have attended their summits, national summits, and they inspired me greatly. When it comes specifically to reentry program, our office does not have a history of post-disposition representation altogether in the state. In South Carolina, we have not had post-disposition representation due to lack of resources. It's not like the idea didn't exist, it's just there's always been lack of resources. So me having attended NJDC summits and trainings, I really saw the need for post-disposition representation. And specifically, I have learned a lot from 2 different models. That one was from Louisiana Center for Children's Rights, and thank you so much to Josh Perry, who has trained me greatly on his model of reentry representation for children. And the other model was at the Youth Advocacy Division at the Committee for Public Counsel Services in Boston, Massachusetts. And thank you to Josh Dohan, who has also taught me a great deal about what they have been doing with their youth and their model of reentry. So what I have done is I have gathered a lot of research and again looked and talked with different people in different states and how they've been providing the reentry services to youth. And that created the type of paradigm shift for me, realizing that clearly there is something more that we adults need to, ask and contribute to the youth we work with if we are to expect any meaningful and lasting positive outcomes. What I have learned from the youth development approach, and of course basing everything on the child development model, is that we need to recognize that if we want the children to do well, we need to help them and support them much more beyond just the legal representation. So if the children are not doing well, there is a reason. and adults need to figure it out so we can help. And the emphasis needs to be on understanding and not on blaming, and on collaborative problem solving, not on consequences. Those are concepts that haven't been emphasized so far as much in South Carolina, especially. So believe me, our program is new, and we face many challenges when it comes to understanding of issues of youth development and how they affect children's decision-making process. But by adding the components of a social worker and civil attorney and youth advocates, and I'll speak about it in a second, I think we are able to educate the judges and the whole judicial system about, the issues of child development. Again, the idea is that young people need support and guidance as they go through the process of building their skills to be successful in life. And developmentally, youth, they need to have a sense of power, usefulness, competence, and belonging. And those unmet needs really become defining factors in their life. And we are here to step in and to help them meet their needs so they can be more successful. And our program is a very new program. We have received 2 grants, one in October 2015 and one in February of 2016. And again, I want to say thank you to our grantors. One of the grants is administered by our Department of Public Safety, and that's a grant based of Juvenile Justice and Delinquency Prevention Formula program. And the idea of the grant is to assist states in carrying out programs that will improve the functioning of juvenile justice system. This particular grant we received to sponsor the position of a social worker. Again, there has not been a social worker position in our office so far, so it's a brand new idea to us, to our office, and we're learning as we go, and learning from the social worker and her ideas. She is devoted solely to the reentry program for our youth, and she actually, her maximum caseload is up to 15 clients, so she can, at one time. So she can work very closely with the youth, and she also has a support of youth advocates. Youth advocates, we have collaborated with our University of South Carolina and the College of Social Work. So youth advocates are interns from the College of Social Work, a master level interns. And of course, we're happy that we can collaborate with USC. We have many great departments here in Columbia, and it seems to translate into great outcome for us to actually be working closely with psychology department, Department of Education, the College of Social Work. So the youth advocates, they support the social worker in providing services and actually being in the field and assessing progress and identifying needs of children after an actual plan is developed for youth and for the families. Obviously, we recognize that children cannot be successful without the support from families, as we can see on the slide. We focus on education, we focus on job readiness, employment, physical, mental health, which we all understand that, but of course we need supportive adults, and they will not always be parents, unfortunately. So the idea is to collaborate again with other services in our county, in our state, and look for mentors and support for our youth in the community. We want to engage youth in civic areas and have them participate in providing community service to others, and of course have them in structured activities. So all those ideas are really to meet their needs of being part of community, of productive community. And the social worker, she's pretty much the lead in the treatment team, and she directs youth advocates who meet with youth at least once a week. So it's a very intensive involvement in the people's lives. And really, the idea is to support them and to see what works and what doesn't work when they're under probation. And sometimes the lead attorney needs to step in so we can have a review hearing, so we can adjust certain things with their order if there is a need for it. But really, so far we have had many challenges, as I said, for our community to understand, that youth, they need to speak up, they have a voice, and we need to be looking into what really works for them, not only from the paternalistic approach as we've always been used to addressing youth needs here. But the challenges, of course, also stem from the fact that we need to have more community involvement. We have need for more mentors. We have need for recognizing that families, they need to have skills that they lack many times. So what we've noticed is that, of course, we need to be addressing the issues for the whole family for youth to be successful. And that's pretty much where our civil attorney's role plays a great role, because he's able to address those challenging barriers that both youth and the families have when they are in the juvenile system. So before I allow Mike to speak about our program and what he does, I also would like to say thank you to the National Juvenile Defender Center again for administering the grant for the civil attorney. It's the Second Chance Act grant, and again, thank you for giving us the opportunity to have a civil attorney in our office. It's a new concept again, and what Mike does goes beyond scope of what the representation of the social worker, because he's able to represent any client who is under 25 years old, any client in our office. Our office is really large. We have about 30 attorneys. And Mike is able to assist all clients across the county. So that so far has been very successful, although we have challenges as well. And I will allow Mike to speak about them all. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Alex. My name is Mike Matheson. I'm the reentry attorney here at the Richland County Public Defender's Office. I'd like to quickly just say hello to my fellow NJDC fellows across the country that I know are listening. We're very thankful for NJDC for the opportunity to do this kind of work, especially here where it was really needed. The first thing we discovered, I would say, is that there was such an absence for this kind of legal representation for these kids that the systems didn't really know how to respond to it. Some folks at the local legal services agency were doing this kind of reentry work, but on a much more limited basis. And when we started, we could tell that the school districts and other people that we were in touch with were just not used to having legal advocacy on behalf of these particular kids. It's been very rewarding, but it's also been very challenging. One of the great things about our program is that we have been able to work together with social workers to get things done. A lot of what I do is not traditional legal work, but is just tying clients to services and putting them in touch with the right people that can help them. Working with social workers has also been beneficial because there's a lot of places where an attorney can't go, or once an attorney gets involved, things will come to a grinding halt. We've been able to get kids switched from one school to another school based on the social worker's persistence, where a letter from an attorney would have, stopped things from going forward. We've had a lot of success representing kids and educating parents about their rights, especially in the areas of suspensions and expulsions, and in IEP meetings and manifestation determination review hearings. Students and parents both realize that they have rights, and that it's sort of a teach a man to fish kind of moment, where they realize that they can do this on their own and how they need to do it going forward. It's been difficult in other ways. As I mentioned, it was kind of a shock to the system when all of these indigent kids suddenly had an attorney on their side. Some of the local school districts have been very difficult to deal with. And of course, there are the regular challenges that any public defender faces, keeping up with clients, maintaining buy-in from your clients, and that sort of thing. We're also working on educating the community and stakeholders on collateral consequences of incarceration and the benefits and availability of expungements. Again, here, local law has made it challenging for some people to obtain expungements or record sealing because there are very limited circumstances in which those remedies are available. But we're trying to do our best to educate not just parents and those who have criminal records, but also people in the schools who make decisions that could result in somebody being referred to law enforcement so that they have an understanding of the widespread ramifications of making that decision inside the school. We're actually presenting tonight, and I've got some materials prepared that I need to get back to in the near future. But it's been a great experience, and I appreciate it. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much. This is great. So I just wanted to, before I let Dean speak, I wanted to remind folks that we really do hope to hear from you about your experiences in your jurisdictions. If you have stories to share, successes or challenges, innovative things you're doing, we do hope that you will raise your hand and share with the group. But first, I will turn it over to Dean to talk about what's going on in Montgomery County, Pennsylvania. Do we have Dean?
Dean, can you hear us? Are you connected at all via audio? I've unmuted all of the telephone lines, so if you are connected, you should be able to speak and we should be able to hear you.
Well, how about, while hopefully we get Dean on the line, if I have a couple of questions, and then if other people have questions, we can ask, and then when we get Dean back on the line, we can hear what he's doing. And I'm interested, especially because Dean had said he's been working quite a bit without a specific grant or without a law.
Hello?
Oh, there he is. Dean.
Can you hear me? Perfect. Yes, sorry.
I was about to tell your story for you, so thank goodness you're here.
Well, thank you, and I apologize for being so troublesome here. So I'm with Montgomery County Public Defender's Offices, and just to kind of tell you what we are, we have 56 people in our office. We have 40 attorneys. We have attorneys that are both part-time and full-time, and that constitutes challenges for the office, but most of our attorneys are full-time. And we're a county-funded organization. In Pennsylvania, we don't have state funding. Every county funds their own public defenders organization. So we have a county commission who funds us. And so a lot of what we do is we don't have a large budget. We have a good budget. I wouldn't want to cry poverty, but obviously we have to really work for what we get. We have to go to a commissioners who answer to taxpayers. And so what we've tried to do here, we don't have what you would call a formal reentry program. So I don't have a department of reentry or an attorney who's only dealing with reentry. I do have a social worker, and we do have a person, a paralegal, who does a lot of our policy work. And I think that to us is the key. And so we, and as I think other panelists have talked about, partnering with other groups, we partnership with everybody. And so already this morning I've been to 3 different groups or events talking to them about what we do and trying to find partners in what we do. So this morning at 8 I was at a round table with about 60 juvenile practitioners from all areas of the county. In the afternoon, we were at a local community event. They opened up a print shop. And then at lunchtime was at a bar association meeting with the Bar Foundation. And so my goal is to put us out there in the community as much as possible and then find partnerships to do reentry. It's a very efficient, from a financial standpoint, a way to do it. It gets a lot of buy-in from our commissioners. It gets buy-in from other people in the community. And it also gets us, hopefully down the road, when we need things from the commissioners, we have people who back us up from the community, i.e. voters. But I think one thing I would like to say about reentry, and our social worker really has kind of taught me through this as I've learned, is that the first thing we have to do, and again, I may be preaching to the choir, is really transform our clients. And it starts from the moment our lawyers meet with the clients, and especially the juvenile clients, is to really get them to understand that this can be a transformative experience and that they're more than just this arrest, or they're more than what they are now, and that when this is over, as we get through this, there is a light at the end of the tunnel, a way to transform the inner culture of our clients so that they understand there's hope at the end of this. So all these great programs that we put together, that if our clients don't buy into them, and especially juvenile clients don't believe in them, then they're not going to work. And so I think part of what we do is try and talk to our clients about where the outcome is, you know, being realistic, obviously, fighting their cases, but also then trying to explain there's a light at the end of the tunnel. In our office, too, this was an office that was it's been around a long time, long before anybody talked about community-oriented defenders or holistic approaches. And so we also have to transform, in our office, the internal culture. There's lawyers who just say, we try cases, that's what we do. We defend the Constitution, that's what we do. We're not social workers. There's other attorneys who buy into it completely. So what we try and do is work it into the culture of our office. So again, this is real cheap. This is not very expensive. We have a huge bulletin board in the middle of the office, and it says community-oriented defender. And we put things on there, flyers, important programs, because I found that we send out emails to lawyers. They read them, they file them somewhere, and sometime down the road when they need that information, it's hard to bring back, or they have to call somebody, and it doesn't get done. So we have it in front of them all the time, every day. They walk by it, they see it. It's easier for them to access it. So those are the two things I just wanted to say about reentry. And now I'll tell you kind of what we do. So as we have a PowerPoint. I'm not going to go through that PowerPoint. I'm not going to talk about our expungement clinic. We have an expungement clinic, which I think is very, very key. And that's, again, if you don't have a lot of money, you can get a lot of bang for your buck with an expungement clinic. It is something that our clients need every day. We just had a guy come in here. He's in his 30s. He's been a nurse for 15 years. And now with all this expanded background checks, you want to speak at your children's school, you want to do anything, you have to run a background check. Well, all these things are now being found. He had a juvenile conviction from like 20 years ago that they found. He didn't lose his job, luckily, but it caused him a lot of problems. They said, you're going to get arrested. You didn't tell us. Why shouldn't we fire you? He's like, I didn't think it was around anymore. So my point is, you can get a lot of bang for your buck, a lot of buy-in from your community by starting an expungement clinic. We use Villanova law students to help us. We have they fill out the paperwork. We worked with, as you can see on there, we worked with the Philadelphia Lawyers for Social Equality to help us. They've been doing this, and so we partnered with them to show us how to do it. And we have law students. We have undergraduates, because undergraduates can take interviews, can do interviews with the clients to get the proper information. And then we file them. We worked out an arrangement with the district attorney's office where we can send them to them. They agree to most of them. They agree to about 80 or 90% of them. And so when they go before a judge, even if they have to go before a judge, they just sign right off. And we do it. We have an open program every Tuesday night, 3 to 5. Anyone can show up no matter what. We did have some trouble with our local bar association. They felt that we were taking business away, so we agreed to only do it for our clients. So I think expungement clinics are a way that you can really start getting buy-in from the community. Our newspaper liked the idea. They did an article on it. Our commissioners liked it. The constituent services. I mean, everybody buys into it. Everybody wants it because it leads to jobs, to education, all those things that are important for our clients and to other funders. And so I think that's a great way to do it. It didn't cost us much money. We have a lot of students love it. They get client contact. It's been wonderful. Another area that we work in is working with employers. And that's an area we're really starting to push, going out and talking to employers. Also, every county has some employment help for the county citizens. So I just met a woman this morning at one of these who do training on jobs, have a hotline to jobs, and she's like, I'd love to partner with you and help your clients get jobs. So again, it's not a typical reentry program, but we have a way of partnering with county organizations. And again, it gets buy-in from our commissioners, it gets buy-in from our local leaders, and it gets us out there in the community so that churches, the local politicians see us, community leaders see us and say, wow, you're really out there helping our constituents, and we appreciate that. Again, we were traditionally a conservative county, more of a conservative county, but again, people buy into that. We've been working with schools, the community college. Again, students at the community college want to volunteer, but we worked in an expungement clinic at the community college where we all went out there. And we even got some local lawyers who were, who were willing to volunteer their time for this expungement clinic. There's a Philadelphia college. There's a college in Philadelphia that we started working with to refer our clients to get school after they get out, and we've worked a little program with them. It's just in the beginning stages, but it's a way of, again, finding education, finding jobs, and finding expungements for the clients when they're released. I will tell you, it goes back to what I said before about transforming a client. If we offer clients hope, we have to give it to them, and we have to make sure that there's something to give them after we've built up the hope. And so I think these programs help us out a lot. We work in again, one of our organizations in Montgomery County is called CADCOM. They're a community organization. They have funding for a fatherhood initiative. So we went over and we talked to Mr. Morris, who runs that fatherhood initiative. And we said, come talk to our lawyers. Come meet, we have brown bag lunches every month. And we try and bring people in from the community to talk to our lawyers, about programs that they have. So the Fatherhood Initiative, he works with young men, and just as it says, how to be fathers. And a lot of men who are formerly incarcerated come out and want to have contact with their family and reestablish relationships with their children. But again, some of them haven't had that in a long time. And it's difficult to do, as we all parents know. Working with our children is one of the toughest jobs we have. So for men and women who come out of incarceration, it's really difficult. So we partnership with the Fatherhood Initiative, which is, I think, probably every county has these kind of organizations. You just have to find out, and they would love to partner with other organizations because that helps them get funding. And so it becomes all kind of symbiotic. Everybody works together, and we all help each other. And I found that, again, it's very inexpensive. Our social worker does a lot of the work. Our paralegal does a lot of the work, and our lawyers are now getting more involved. They're buying more as they see more success. They're buying into it. It makes their job easier. Think about our juvenile. We're going to do juvenile training for juvenile kids to get summer jobs with a local organization. It gives us more, arrows in the quiver to say to a juvenile court judge, we got him into a job training program, or, Your Honor, we got so-and-so a job waiting when he gets out. That's a lot it's less likely for that client to be incarcerated. So that's another place we look at. We work with a group. There's a group in our jails called HopeWorks, and it's a reentry program that the jail established with one of the local mental health and drug alcohol organizations. They started that. We said, hey, you want us to come and work with you? He said, sure. So now we started working with them, and now it's led to a host of other opportunities to do more things in the jail to help our clients. We also partnership with nonprofits. Again, there's a group in Philadelphia called YSRP, and I'm blanking on what it stands for right now, but they help us with our certified juveniles. And so they're a volunteer organization. They go in, they look at our juvenile situation, they help us with our certifications, and if a client then is certified to adult court, what they've helped us do is mitigation. For our juvenile clients, they work with the families so that we can advocate for them to go back home to their families. You know, some of you other people touched on it, but we have a program so if a family needs drug and alcohol counseling, we try and help them get that so the judge feels more comfortable sending that child home. So that's a little bit of what we do, and I think there's many other ways to partnership with ongoing programs that give us more credibility with the community, and therefore in time we're hoping to get more grants. We've got a few, but in time to get more grants. The PowerPoint that we have up here, there are two of our programs, Expungement Clinic and Back on Track. As you can see, we have a model, we use it, you can read it. If you want to ask questions about it, I'm more than willing to answer questions about it. But as you see, we first look at the needs, the exploration, then we do installation, implementation, and sustainability. And that's kind of the model, as you see on that PowerPoint slide. That's the model we've been using. We feel it's efficient. We feel it's cheap. We don't have a large budget, and it's tough finding money, as many of you probably on this call already know, so I don't have to tell you. That's what we've been doing in Montgomery County, and I'm more than willing to answer questions if you have any.
Great. So now is the time to ask your question. And while I'm waiting for them to come in, I have a couple questions myself. So this is for any of the panelists. Recently, HUD came out with a guidance around housing, and basically it said that they were going to start looking at not just public housing, but private housing, and whether landlords had blanket exclusions on people with arrest or criminal records. And we saw recently also that, you know, the past couple of years, there's also been a focus on trying to get rid of sort of the blanket exclusions that some employers have on hiring people with a criminal record. So I'm wondering if you could talk about whether this is something that your clients are asking about, whether you're able to help them if they have times when they feel they have been unfairly excluded from a house or a job in particular, because we know how important both housing and employment are for reentry.
Just in Montgomery County, we haven't had no one's talked to us about housing concerns. We haven't heard that. With job concerns, people have told us about job problems, hiring former convicted felons, former, even misdemeanors. We do, though, again, partnering with a couple organizations who are willing to hire former inmates. One employer actually has it on his employment application. They can check whether they were a public defender client if they wish to, and he's going to give them some priority in the hiring. I'm meeting with a man next week who runs a chain of grocery stores who hires convicted felons, and we're trying to see about using juveniles in the summertime at his stores to provide employment. So we do see the employment side. I have not seen anything on the housing side.
Tracy, this is Jamie from PDS in DC. So we actually see both of this regularly, both of these issues. And we're very fortunate that in DC we have Ban the Box for employment, and recently one of our council members introduced a bill for Ban the Box for housing, which would greatly improve the ability for district returning citizens to obtain housing, or at least not be asked on the initial application for housing. So we are very hopeful that Councilmember McDuffie's bill will pass, and we will have ban the box for both employment and for housing. But what happens is after, for instance, a conditional offer of employment goes out and then background checks are conducted for folks who aren't able to have their records sealed or expunged, then these things come up and clients come to us frequently to ask us questions about what do I do now? How do I advocate for myself in order to obtain employment? And same would similarly apply to housing. And we've been very creative and done letter writing campaigns, advocacy directly with employers, meeting with employers and occupational licensing boards, using our litigation and legal advocacy skills to represent our clients in the best light. Because reentry, the truth is, in DC, you can only have your record sealed for misdemeanors and eligible misdemeanors. And so if there are if you have felonies on your record, these things are going to come up, and employers could learn down the line when you're applying, and certainly housing folks will learn about it. And so we need to be creative as lawyers and treat employment and housing like we would a sentencing hearing. And so our lawyers have been creative and successful in obtaining and helping our clients obtain jobs and housing so that they can move on with their lives. So I do encourage folks, even when the law is stacked against you, that there are creative litigation and advocacy styles and tools that you can use to advocate successfully for your clients to obtain their goals.
Great. Now, Tracy, this is Genevieve, and this is a question that I just received. So for all panelists, please explain any difficulties in establishing the community networks and how you overcame them. How often do your partners' advisory boards meet, or was there a need to establish an advisory board? And additionally, the use of paralegals to address policy issues, is that related to a review of various agency and or federal policies, and how is it utilized?
I assume that's, so this is Dean Beer from Montgomery County. Explaining the difficulties, we didn't find a lot of difficulties partnering with other organizations. We don't have an advisory board. If what you mean is when I think of an advisory board, I think of a group of community leaders who work with our office. We haven't done that yet, and we're talking about that. That's something we really want to start, and the question is how many and who, whatever. The partnerships, though, of what we found with community organizations were easy. Most of them were dying to partner with other organizations, and some of them were even surprised that we even cared. They were like, really? You know, again, as we all know, public defenders sometimes, for all the wrong reasons, get bad raps. And so we deal with those. And by being out there in the community, we've changed that dynamic in our county. It's taken 3-4 years, but people now go, wow, oh yeah, the public defender, they come to see you. They're really involved in our lives. People are starting to understand that. So I found that at least of the community organizations that we partnered with, it was very easy. I'll say another thing too, I'm also a big believer in giving before I get. So I'm more willing to go to their meetings and talk to their people so that I have some buy-in with them and they understand who I am before I start asking for help for us. But I think we've really started to work together. Paralegal addressing policy issues. Our paralegal actually helps us run clinics. So we do a booth at what we call CADCOM, which is a community organization. They have a fundraiser every year. They have a big picnic. We put out a booth there. And she sets that up, so she helps do that piece. She runs our youth forums. We have a couple of youth police forums. So she's not just really researching policy issues. She's researching policy issues, but she's on the ground. As I said, she's the brains and the brawn behind a lot of the programs that we do, our expungement clinic. So I think that answers your question. I hope it does. If you need to elaborate, I can elaborate some more.
So I'd be happy to take that on too. I don't know if, Alexandra, if you wanted to try as well.
Yes, thank you. I actually want to talk about the collaboration again, because Dean has emphasized it several times, and we cannot emphasize it enough, I think. To work with other stakeholders in the community is absolutely crucial. I mean, it takes a village, and we all know it, and it's real. We couldn't really do it on our own, and you know, there's so many organizations, whether they are government entities or nonprofits, that are looking for clients, so to speak. And the Public Defender's Office really is a source of referral. And as Dean was saying, they are happy to partner with us because we have access to the very people that they are trying to serve. And they are not always, it's not always easy to connect with the very people in need. So we are the first person of contact, and to have a reentry program in the Public Defender's Office makes perfect sense, again, and we have only seen successes in reaching out to the community organizations because they all are looking for, you know, for our youth to help them. So not too many challenges there. And we don't have the advisory board either, and so I cannot really speak much about that. And again, we're a young program. We have paralegals helping with regular daily legal and other organizational staff, not much of a policy-oriented work either on their side, but very supportive. Our whole office is involved in the work we do. And so that's the extent of the comment I have in regards to this question.
This is Jamie again from PDS. I would just add to that. I agree with everything that my colleagues have said. I would add that we have to think outside the box when it comes to who our partners are. For instance, because our clients on the adult side are shipped out to the Federal Bureau of Prisons, we have to partner with the prisons officials, and that means on a federal level. So while we're state level clients, we have to work with the feds to ensure that folks are having access to the services when they come home to the district. So we often have to step back and pause and think, who do our partners need to be? It's definitely the grassroots community-based organizations folks, but it's also the court, it's probation, it's parole, it's the other executive level offices here in the district that we have to work with. So our partners, sometimes we have strange bedfellows, and as I mentioned earlier, our juvenile services program is actually co-located inside our Department of Youth Rehabilitation Services buildings. And so we have to massage those relationships and figure out our mutual interests, and then when we agree to disagree, be prepared to do that and stand firm. So it can be complicated, but it's also exciting and invigorating. I will also note that we have a board of directors for PDS, but it's for our entire organization, and they meet with staff typically once a year. They consult mostly with our executive team and not with division chiefs such as myself. So on our day-to-day work, we don't have an advisory board, but as a division chief, and I have managers who report to me, we are charged with developing the programs related to the mission of our organization and our specific divisions. And PDS actually has a special counsel to our director who works specifically on policy-related matters. So she helps to craft testimony, legislation, and other things that when we're putting forth efforts. But on a more local level or more sort of grassroots level, to repeat myself, we work on policy initiatives quite frequently, sitting on committees and other things, and that's from myself to my staff attorneys. I firmly believe that it doesn't always have to be folks with meatier titles to sit on these committees, and that everybody who is invested in this work should have the opportunity. So I'm happy to hear that Dean has a paralegal doing that work, because I often think that the talents of paralegals and line staff, investigators, and those folks are underutilized because they have the direct expertise to advocate on behalf of our clients on a policy level.
Can I just add on to what Jamie said, because I think what she made a great point was looking at partnerships that we don't normally look at, and I didn't mention that, but one of the partnerships we just started working with is our sheriff, is the jail. The jails are becoming overcrowded. Jailers don't want low-level misdemeanor cases sitting in jail. They don't want them there. It costs money. They don't. One of the guys, who, again, a long-time sheriff who can serve as rock solid. He says, I don't care if some guy smokes a joint. Do I really need to lock that guy up at $50 or $100 a day because he smoked a joint? He said, get serious. And I think that, again, so one of the things leading to us getting a reentry program and getting some more reentry is the jail saying, get people out of here. We got too many people with too many problems that we're not adept to help and don't need to be here. We don't want them. Again, it's a money issue. But again, for our clients, it's a freedom issue. And so we work together with someone who some parts of the county listen to more than us. And so again, I think, Jamie, I'm glad you mentioned that because I think that's very key. You know, and you can even find sometimes in the district attorney's office, you can find some places where you can agree to agree. And I think so, again, I appreciate you for pointing that out.
So Genevieve, you say we have some more questions?
Yes, we do have some more questions. So it looks like one person has their hand raised, but doesn't look like we have audio connected. So we'll go to one other question that's coming through the queue while we figure that piece of it out. So this is a question for Alexandra and Mike. Do you rely on the 30 attorneys in the office to refer clients to the program, or do you have another system? Have you had any challenges in getting the attorneys in your office to refer clients, i.e. high caseload?
This is Mike. We have gotten referrals from the other attorneys in the office. The way that the public defender's office is set up here is there are 2 dedicated juvenile attorneys, and then the rest of the attorneys work with clients of all ages. And because our grant goes up to servicing people under the age of 25, we've gotten referrals from all different kinds of cases. But it has not been a huge caseload or an overwhelming caseload. Initially, we had a lot of questions about what it was I was doing here. But the more and more they learn about the program, the more and more they learn about what I can do for them. And even if it's not starting a full-blown representation for their client, they can come to me if their client has an issue. It may be a little bit outside the scope of what I'm doing. Like if they just need some statutory research on a family court issue, or if they need some information about child support, you know, I can provide them with that even though I'm not going to directly represent them there necessarily. So I think that the more the other attorneys in the office get to know me, the more they identify how I can be a resource. And I think it's been a good resource for them, but we haven't seen just a massive influx of clients demanding civil legal services. Right.
Yeah, so I mean, I can say from the juvenile side that, you know, I could almost refer every client of mine to Mike, because there's always something going on, especially in the education realm, that needs to be addressed. So it's extremely important and convenient to have an attorney in the office. When I'm meeting with a client, I can immediately refer the client to Mike here in the office. They don't need to make another appointment. They don't have to go to another building. They don't have to search for him. He's here. He many times can join us on a conference, which is very valuable. That accessibility for our clients, it helps a lot. And again, we used to refer clients to other South Carolina Legal Services, which is very helpful agency with civil representation, but that was another bus stop for our clients, so to speak, and that translated into those appointments not being made and clients not receiving the additional help. So having those resources here in the office, it's extremely convenient for the clients and ultimately translates into more advocacy for them. Did we answer your question? Yeah.
Yes, that's great. Thank you. Now, there are 2 other, just a quick question for you, Alexandra, and then I have another one. What is the name of the Boston group that is a model reentry group that you mentioned?
Okay.
Can you repeat that name?
Yes, it's the Youth Advocacy Division at the Committee for Public Counsel Services. And the director is Joshua Dohan, D-O-H-A-N.
Great, thank you. And now a question for you, Dean, that we got was, what would you say has been the greatest accomplishment or outcome of the Back on Track program?
The Back on Track program is a really unique program. And again, just for people who didn't see it on the screen, it's a partnership with Big Brother and Big Sister. And what we do is we identify children who can use BIGs, and then we identify a BIG and we put them together in a program. Again, it's a volunteer program. If the child doesn't want it or the parent doesn't want it, it's not forced. We don't make it part of the juvenile system. It's separate in our office. So the judges know about it, but they can't really make it part of their disposition. What I think it's the best thing that I've found for it is it keeps a lot of children, or at least some of our children, from being placed. So that, again, if you have a child who committed a very, very serious aggravated assault, that's not going to be the case where you're going to keep that child maybe out of placement. Maybe you can. I'm not trying to be negative, but you look at the case and we try and get those kids partnered up very early on, so that we can start the relationship. So when we go to disposition, if it's a guilty plea or even if it's a trial, you bring that big in as a character witness. So we've used it as a way to stop judges from placing kids, to say, I'm going to give this kid a chance to stay at home with his family. He has a BIG. Many of our BIGs, again, they're employed. They have great jobs. They come in suits and ties, and they're impressive, and they speak well, and they advocate for these kids. And so judges are reluctant to then just place that child without really looking at it very hard. So I think that's where the key for us is to stop them from being placed and then moving on to keep them from coming back in the system. We haven't, the kids that we referred and matched, I think we've only had 1 or 2 out of about 30 or 40 kids come back. I'm never good with numbers. I should be better with that. But that's where I found our success. And ongoing, this program has been involved about a year. And the average time that a BIG is with a kid, I think, is 18 months. So we'll see how those play out at the end.
Great, thanks. Genevieve?
Great, thank you. Yes, we received one comment from the Philly Public Defender. They said, without good jobs, reentry is never going to be successful. You need to find employers that are willing to accept felons and pay them for the work, and then monitor those employers to make sure they're not taking advantage. Our DA office is a good partner in many respects. Education is the most important aspect. We need to have cooperation with school districts and tech schools, and we have many reentry programs run by the city outside of the legal area. So this is just another way to be innovative in reentry work. And then, so I don't know if any of the panelists would like to comment on that as well.
No, I think what the person says is correct. I mean, jobs are key to a lot of this, There's other things too, but jobs are key to a lot of this, because people need to support their families and support themselves. So I think that he or she is right.
Well, and one of the things this is Jamie from PDS, one of the things that often happens for our clients is that folks will be out and successful and doing well for many years, and it can be, we've seen folks as many as 20 or 30 years after having had a criminal arrest or even a conviction, and then they're up for promotions or a change of job, and here in the district when they're looking for federal employment and certain levels of security, and something shows up on their record, and not only are they not able to be promoted, they may be at risk of losing their jobs. And so reentry issues don't stop just by returning home. Reentry lasts as long as that criminal record doesn't go away, and sometimes even after it does, if things show up on credit reports when they're not supposed to. So the work of reentry lawyers and advocates really never ends. And it's really incumbent upon us to think about not just the immediate reentry needs, which are extraordinarily important, because if you don't get stabilized when you come home, the chances of returning to prison are so high. But then down the road, what needs to be done to change policy and to advocate for folks when they're moving on with their lives, but the criminal record still stands as an impediment to future success?
Thank you. So I'm going to insert one question really quick related to that. And, you know, you mentioned that, or the person who mentioned that, you know, if it's a felony record, it may show up, and, you know, as opposed to perhaps a misdemeanor, which, as you know, in D.C. you can get a misdemeanor sealed but not a felony. So I'm wondering if any of your offices or any people who are in the audience, you know, sort of think of like how you connect the reentry impacts with what defenders do at the front end. So sort of thinking through like, well, you know, this, if you have this on the front end, this is what it's going to mean on the back end for you.
I think that's a great question, Tracy, and it goes to what we think of. I mean, the word or the term collateral consequences really doesn't capture what we have sort of tried to re-term here in our internal lingo as direct consequences of criminal convictions. Because when we're advising our clients about taking certain pleas, those things could impact the types of jobs that they're eligible to apply for instance, down the road. Because even if you have a misdemeanor on your record or a felony that's less serious than the initial charging document, you may not be able to get a certain occupational license or qualify for certain levels of security. So these things are very important to people if they have long-term goals. So I think that it's hard, right? Because as public defenders, we're worried about the individual's liberty at that moment. And it's hard to tell what's going to happen years from now, particularly when you're in offices that have steep caseloads and you have pressure from everyone, your client, the client's family, and the government to resolve things. But we do need to be thinking about, and those of us that have dedicated jobs that are able to focus on this need to be thinking about that and do a couple of things. Partner with universities and other experts like your organization, Tracy, and study this longitudinally to see the differences things can make if we're advising our clients about certain plea agreements or sentencing or sentences that can then have long-term impact. So I think there's a lot that needs to be done, and those of us in the position to do it should take the responsibility on.
You know, that just came up in the talk we gave this morning. Our chief of our juvenile unit made that same point. You know, he said for many of these kids, they're willing to plead to anything to get out of detention, and they're willing to do, you know, anything to get out of detention. And so, you know, again, focusing on that on the difference between say a felony 1 or a felony 2 is so important for those reasons down the road. And again, with juvenile, most of the time the disposition is not charge-driven, so the disposition could be the same for a misdemeanor or a felony. So it's imperative where you can fight those sentences, those charges, so that down the road, 5, 10 years from now, it doesn't affect that child. I think it's a little easier to do in juvenile court because I think the DAs and the judges are willing to work with you more on changing charges because it's not sentence-driven. As opposed to an adult court where there's a little less willingness to do that, I think. But I think we just brought that point up this morning. The head of our juvenile unit did to this organization we spoke to of juvenile people. That is important to think about that 10 years down the road or 5 years down the road. And that's the attorney's job. That's our job.
This is Monica. I just wanted to go ahead and give Lawyer Winfield the opportunity to speak. I'm going to go ahead and unmute your line. It looks like you had some questions about peer support group model.
Yes, can you hear me?
We can hear you, yep.
Yeah, I served 30 years in prison, and I speak from the prison time-serving experience. I'm in the 9th year of my release, and I graduated from Tulane University, and I'm one class from graduating from Loyola University here in New Orleans. And what I'm trying to do is, and I haven't seen really much, if not any at all of it, is to develop a reentry peer support group model. I work here in Orleans Parish for the Orleans Public Defenders Organization. I was originally an 8th grade dropout. I am technically still serving a sentence of 297 years. I'm on parole. So, but in the 9th year of my successful reentry, and I'm doing things that are kind of rather unprecedented, especially in the New Orleans area, I'm trying to hone and consolidate my particular methodology for being successful, and to implement it into a developing reentry peer support group model, because I want to create a way in which, you know, the reentry population factors into all that's going on, and factors in a way that I think that my particular success is transferable to my peers. So that's the reason why I'm trying to develop the reentry peer support group. I've actually have it written, about 80 to 90% of it actually drafted in a particularized, comprehensive manner. So I'm reaching out right now for some input on that particular idea.
Mr. Winfield, this is Jamie from DC. I would love to connect you with the folks here in the district, our Mayor's Office of Returning Citizens Affairs, because it's a unique office in that it's actually an executive level office that works to do exactly what you're talking about. It's operated currently, its leadership is directed by returning citizens themselves. And it's, we believe, woefully underfunded and under-resourced. The model is to have folks who have been incarcerated to work with folks when they're coming home and to connect them to the services they need, whether it's jobs, housing, legal services, et cetera. And I think the component you're talking about takes that even one step further, which is actually lending social and emotional support to people, because after being incarcerated for such long periods of time, people need a network because their networks may not exist in the way that they did or at all. So if you, my contact information is on the slides, but I would be more than happy to link you to people. I also know that there's an organization out of the state public defender organization in New York. There's a pre-entry program, and I'm blanking on the contact person's name now, but the gentleman who was running it, who I met last summer, he actually also is a returning citizen and is helping for pre-entry and working with folks who are going to be entering prison so they have a support network during their terms of incarceration. So know that you're not alone, and it's incredibly important work. I think that's even a euphemism for how important it is. And I'd be happy to help you link to that, and frankly, listen to you to think about ideas of things that we should be incorporating here in the district.
Okay, that's a pretty positive response, ma'am. And what's your name?
I'm Jamie Argento Rodriguez. I was the first speaker. I'm at the Public Defender Service for the District of Columbia.
Okay, so how can we follow up on this?
So Tracy, this is Tracy. The very last slide, which maybe we could put up now, has all contact information for all of our speakers. And we'll also be mailing this out. So you can reach any of the speakers or us here at the office, the Right to Counsel National Campaign office here. So yes, definitely please do reach out, and we will also put the whole presentation online as well.
Okay, can I just ask one more question? I
would love to know more about what you're doing.
Okay. The lady I spoke to at first, what's her name?
That's Jamie.
Jamie? Okay.
Yes.
Argento Rodriguez?
That's me.
Okay, gotcha, baby.
Right, thank you.
And then another comment just came in through the question and answer box, and this person said if you go to the Philadelphia Reintegration website, the Philadelphia Reintegration Services, the website has a lot of information that might be able to help you with this. So thank you for the individual who just submitted that.
Yeah, thank you all too. Good starting point for me, because I usually work in isolation. Unfortunately. You know, and then I think one of the things too, if I may add, if I have a moment, one of the most untapped resources of this whole reentry spectrum is the persons reentering themselves. And you know, so I'm trying to create a platform and a context within which we can really begin to tap into our own capabilities, and to and there's a lot of relationships that we have that we really initiated in prison, and if there's a certain quality in that. There's a certain really worthwhile. It's really a worthwhile asset to the community if we can organize ourselves and begin to, to relate and to really combine our strengths. Because, I mean, I know of these various talent levels and capabilities of guys that society doesn't seem to know about, and I just want to bring it to the table in this reentry peer support model so that we can find a way to really be more of a factor in all that people are doing around the country, locally, regionally, and such, and to kind of like be game changers in a sense, I guess, because particularly here in New Orleans, I don't really see much of any kind of effectiveness about what people are doing, what entities are doing, what the nonprofit agencies are doing. So, I think I have a way, and I think my life really represents that way. I didn't get into this 9th year of release and have these degrees and have my eyes set on getting a doctorate degree somewhere for nothing. There's a whole lot of inclusive stuff going on, dynamic that's being played out in me as an individual. And I just want to step forward to contribute so that other guys can be just as successful, or to some measure as successful as what I have been.
Great. Well, thank you so much. So I think we probably have time for maybe one more question, Genevieve. Do we have one more in the queue?
I can ask another question?
Oh, I think, well, we can, I think there's maybe one more question that's in the queue from someone else. So let's
okay,
see if
right.
we can get, thank you so much.
Yes. Well, it looks like
this is Monica. We actually do have a question from Mr. John J. Coleman. He's the with the New York State Defenders Association, the New York
Great.
Prisoner Pre-Entry Mentoring Project Mentor. And I believe, John, can you hear us? I unmuted Ann Rabe's line. I believe you're calling through.
Yes, hi.
Okay,
Yeah,
hi,
we're
Ann.
both in the same office.
Great, great.
I just wanted to pass on to Mr. Winfield that Jay Coleman, who's the mentor coordinator of the Prisoner Pre-Entry Mentoring Project in New York State with the Defenders Association, would love to talk with him.
Okay, great.
And his number is 518-465-3524. So Mr. Winfield, that's Jay Coleman, and he's a formerly incarcerated person as well for over 20 years. He's been successfully mentoring prisoners before they go into prison, first offenders, but he wants to hook that up with an effective reentry program. And so we're doing a pilot project in Schenectady and Albany counties, hoping to move down the Hudson Valley to have both pre-entry and reentry, as well as in prison mentoring to successfully help folks, throughout that whole process. So it's Jay Coleman at 518-465-3524, and we have a little booklet on this program we can share with people if they're interested.
And Ann, I'm so glad you offered that, because this is Jamie again. That Jay is who I met last summer, so thank you so much. I'm so glad you all are on the call.
Hello, this is Jay.
Hi, Jay.
Hi, how are you? I just ran down to Ann's office. I couldn't get you on audio. But what I wanted to say was that we have the program here, as you know. But I wanted to ask Dean that because we run this program, we don't have a reentry component itself. I'm running this program as pre-entry, but I have a reentry component at the end because I want to make it a gate-to-gate program. I want to have guys be able to go in knowing what to expect in prison, men and women, knowing what to expect in prison, and thinking from the first day they go in about reentry.
Right.
All right.
Right. And I think.
Yeah. Go ahead.
No, I think that's, and when I start out what I say in the talk, if we don't convince our clients to transform the way they think about what's going to happen, then they're not going to buy into reentry. They're not, if they don't believe that they can be successful and that there is an option out there after they get out, then it's not going to work no matter what program we put together. Right. And I think I love that pre-entry piece that you know, our lawyers try to do that. We don't have a person like yourself who can do a real pre-entry program, and that's a great idea, and that you get people ready to know that there's hope at the end of that line, no matter where they're going.
That's right, and that's really what it translates into, sir. That it translates into hope for guys going in, because most of the people I see and talk to when I first get there, they're deflated. They've just either been convicted or taken a plea. So they're looking at years of prison and saying, what the hell am I going to do? My life is over? Sure. So I'm there to tell them, listen, your life is not over. This is a transition period in your life. Make it a positive transition period and come out 10 times stronger, 10 times better than you go in.
And I think going back to those advisory boards we just spoke about, I think if we do set up advisory boards, there should be formerly incarcerated people on that advisory board, as well as community leaders and church leaders and elected officials, so that you do have that understanding of what it's like being in there. Because, you know, I've been doing this for 30 years, but I've never been behind bars. So, I mean, I don't know what the hell that is.
Right, and that's exactly what's happening here. That is one of the things that we all admire about our executive director is that he thought down the line. We've had a client advisory board here since the 70s, and so and we became active again in the 90s. I mean, really active as a client advisory board, and we have formerly incarcerated people on that client advisory board. I am now the chairman of the client advisory board, and I, of course, am formerly incarcerated. You know, and we have other people on the board who are formerly incarcerated, and we bring that component to every client advisory board meeting, and that has helped in because we're the backup center for the public defenders throughout the state. That has helped in our relationship with the other public defenders and helping them build their offices as well. But the PPMP project, the Prisoner Pre-Entry Mentoring, is what I've been doing is giving these men and women, well, men so far, giving these men two-hour sessions on the curriculum that I put together dealing with all aspects of prison, dealing with all aspects from the day you go in to the day you leave, and talking about those things. And at the end of this time, for the most part, these men are going in ready to handle what is happening in prison, and they're not going in, you know, deaf, dumb, and blind, and taking whatever is handed to them.
Tracy, can I make one more comment? And I think because what Jay's talking about is so critical about having clients advise us, I would take it one step further and charge public defender offices to hire folks that have records. We've done that. We have lawyers on our staff. I have had staff directly report to me who have records themselves, and I think when we put our money where our mouth is, then we're truly preaching or practicing what we preach. And so I put that as a charge to everyone, public defenders throughout the country, to think about who we hire and who wants to do this work.
And we just had the conversation yesterday. The same conversation. We're hiring someone, came in. One of the people said, what about a guy who's in our behavioral health court? And I said, how can we ask employers to hire people who've been formerly incarcerated if we won't do it ourselves? How hypocritical could that be? And so I've had interns who've come to me with prior records, and we haven't had any lawyers, but we've had support staff. And I agree with you 100% that if we need to walk the walk, and so we should be hiring people who are formerly incarcerated. If they apply, we should be actively seeking it. Really, I agree with you 100%.
Great. Well, thank you all so much. We just have one final question, and it's for all panelists. And if you could answer it briefly, because I know we're short on time, that would be great. The question is, how do you collect the data validating progress or successes? So how do you track your success?
I'll answer that really quickly. This is Jamie. We haven't yet done that, to be honest with you, because success, I mean, from the traditional public defense model is whether or not you win or lose at trial, right? Or whether you win or lose on appeal. And so the metrics so far don't exist, but that's a charge for me as I move forward in my tenure to figure it out.
I got to agree with Jamie. I mean, we don't have any metrics. We have, with the Back on Track, we do keep the numbers of how many kids come back, and we've seen that. Expungements, we use a lot of success stories, of getting people jobs or getting them into programs, and we use vignettes to sell it. I like to sell it more with people than with numbers with the expungement clinic, but numbers are hard to come by.
Right. Well, for us, the beauty of having grants, and I put quotation marks around the beauty word, it's really to be really data-driven. So we have to have assessments, and we have evaluators involved in our grants. So that causes us to be really mindful of tracking what we do and thinking very creatively about both qualitative and quantitative ways to measure what we do. Again, we are a very new program, so we don't have all those outcomes identified yet. However, we have performance indicators for everything we do, and that we needed to have it in place in order to get the grants. So now we have to follow those indicators and what we have committed to measuring. So in that sense, I must say that we do spend quite a bit of time on tracking what we do, and it also puts us in a position to self-evaluate and see how we can make progress. And then the idea is really for us to be able to translate it for more sustainable programs. So we have committed ourselves to talking with counties and our state and seeing if we will actually be able to have sustainable programs, not grant-based program in our office and in other offices. And for that, we do have to have some measures presented. And that also, just this last one point, we also collaborate with researchers from the USC School of Law and other departments at the university. So we then can have actual research papers that will talk in more depth about what we do. That's the idea. It hasn't come together yet, but that's the projections where we're going at.
And I could speak a little bit about a lot of what we're trying to measure is in terms of opportunities created. You can't always say that, well, we won that suspension or we won that expulsion hearing, and therefore that case is a win. That one's a check mark. You have to look at, whether or not you created an opportunity for somebody to have a better chance. And you also look at other things that you do. So we do have quantitative data, but we have qualitative data, anecdotal evidence. We track how many partnerships we've created. A lot of our successes don't really boil down to numbers. Like, for instance, if I connect some Department of Juvenile Justice probation workers with some organizations that have transitional vetting, and that helps a child get out of placement, then that's a win, even though that child was never even my client. But we've done something successful there. So we aren't trying to do it all, just by binary. We're trying to measure it in as many different ways as we can.
Well, thank you very much to all of our panelists, and thank you also to our participants and for the great questions. Obviously, this feels like the beginning of a conversation more than the end of one, and we hope to continue to help facilitate that through the Right to Counsel National Campaign and with everyone here. So thank you again, and we will be following up with an email with the link, and if there are any resources that the panelists would like to share or the listeners would like to share, we would be happy to send those out as well. So thank you again.
Thank you.
Thank you.